Hey, what's good, everybody? Rye Howard back again with a brand new episode of Arkansas, where we get the opportunity to educate you all about important people, places, and things that serve as pillars within our community. Today, we'll be educating you guys about a record shop that has been in business here in Little Rock for over 30 years called Ugly Mike's. But before we get into telling you the story of Ugly Mike's, you already know what we gotta do. Please cue the intro.
Ugly Mike's Records. It was a gathering spot for everybody in the community. You could find something that you needed at Ugly Mike's.
It's a wonderful place to go to. You know, you go in there and it's not neat and just put together. It's just that it's records. That's what it is. Just history, history. And that shop means a whole lot. Even right now, some people just want to come by there and just take pictures. And I see that all the time,
Ugly Mike and his store is so important to the community because it's more than a store.
That's UGLYMIKE. My license plate number is Ugly One, so I'm ugly all over, all the time. The story behind Ugly Mike is when I was a young man playing football, I played linebacker. I was kind of dirty. And one evening, the coach said, "That boy sure play ugly, don't he?" And Ugly Mike hit me then, and it stuck with me all this time. When I finished high school, I went into the Navy. I got stationed in Boston, Massachusetts. 1967, I walked into a record shop and got a job. And that locked me in. I've pretty much been into the record business all my life.
Mike's job at the record store would eventually lead him to becoming a popular radio DJ and stand-up comedian.
By being on the radio, I started doing little private parties. And I had this old raggedy equipment, and every time it broke down, I would get on the mic and I would talk smack until I could get my equipment fixed. And I was doing that one night, and this guy came up to me and asked me, was I a comedian? And I lied and said, yeah. Never been on stage in my life, didn't know nothing about being on stage. And he says to me, if I could put together a 30-minute show, they would pay me $300. And the first thing hit my mind is, I'm working these parties all night from 9 to 2 for $40. I'm gonna get this $300. And that's how I got into being a comedian. I started doing shows one after the other one, seemed like. Every time I looked up, somebody wanted me to do a show. When I started going out of town, I would go out of town and I would work those shows and I would come back and go back to work in the record shop. I worked in the record shop until I moved back to Little Rock.
After a relatively successful run as a stand-up comedian, the emergence of a new genre of music would eventually lead to Mike coming back home to Little Rock.
During that time, disco hit. And where nightclubs was hiring comedians, they started hiring disc jockeys to play disco. Disco was a big thing then, and it hit. And it got to the point where I wasn't working. And I'm saying to myself, I've got used to making a few dollars now. And I said, well, I could do better working on my own then, And this is what happened. I said, well, I go back to Arkansas and see what I can do. I know this business, I've learned this business. And at that time, I knew a couple of people in the record business. There was executives in the record business like Al Bell, and we were friends. We grew up together in North Little Rock. And I said, well, maybe we talked. And I said, well, maybe we can come back to Little Rock and put together something and help me get my comedy back out, keep it out there. But it didn't pan out. I opened up a record shop. And I got to the point where I liked meeting people face to face instead of standing out on the stage looking at the audience. I just like talking to people and knowing what their life is like, and they know what my life is like. And this is what I've done ever since I just gave up the comedy pretty much altogether. I don't really do it. I can still write good comedy, but I'm happy in this record shop. We first opened up in '79, and pretty much ever since then. The only little time we had in between was to move from Wright Avenue and Wolf to up on 12th Street. When I moved up on 12th Street, remember Highland Court was across the street. And that's exactly why I moved up here, man. I came up here and I saw all these people in Highland Court, and I said, shoot, I'm in the wrong place down on Wright Avenue. And when this place came available up here, I jumped on it.
After settling into its new location, Ugly Mike's Records quickly began to be known to the community for more than its wide selection of music.
You know, when I came up here, a big business for me was selling snacks. I used to sell those 25-cent pops, those 25-cent chips and annihilators. And that was a big business for me then. It helped me get my feet off the ground. And when you're selling snacks like that, you get so many people running in the store. And that's how, I met a lot of people like that.
The community went there, and Ugly Mike at one point didn't just sell music. Wasn't just a rental venue, but he had candy, he had all kind of other things that you could buy and purchase. Mike was that place, that hangout where people would come through and buy tickets to concerts because of his relationship with Power 92 and being a ticket outlet. So it was very much a part of the community in many ways.
Mike's close relationship with the local music community and radio stations made it a go-to destination for plenty of celebrities and touring music artists.
If you name somebody who came through here, they stopped through there. They had to, especially if they was people who was promoting the show. They had to. That's what because back in the day they used to do radio remotes, and sometimes they would do in-stores to let you know we in town, we finna be down here. Like, it was totally different. They had to stop through there. Just everybody. Just name the list. If it was a show here, it was everybody.
And I mean, we talking about the 2-time Grammy winner, Bobby Rush and Big Rob to Julio. Usher has been one. I was there. Usher was like 13, 14 years old and was there at his shop. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, well, when Usher came through, he and Aaron Hall was doing a concert over at the Barton. Usher was a young man at 13, 14 years old. And I didn't know much about Usher. But all of these youngsters come in this store to see Usher. And so I had Usher go upstairs. I guess 300-400 people stood at the door. Went upstairs to see Usher. When his visit was over, he came down and he gave me a picture, his little slick. That's what we called him in the industry then. And he wrote his name on it. And I just looked at him, I said, you need to go back to school and learn how to write. Not knowing Usher was gonna be the Usher that he is now. Oh, man. And I wish that I had kept that picture. I don't know what happened to it.
After establishing itself as a pillar in the community, Ugly Mike soon became known as a staple in the local music scene with the development of its own studio and record label.
It came about, but I think a young man came up here, his name was Mo B. He went by the name of Mo B, and he could sing. So we got together and we built a little studio in the back to produce his first album. And that's how we got that going. We got that going, and all of a sudden, you look up and everybody's coming in the store. Man, can I record back there? I didn't know anything about engineering, so we had a couple of more people doing the engineering back there. And that's how we got that off the ground.
You had some of the best talent. It was a lot of producers here, writers. The studio was nice in the back right there. Of course, back then we used things like ADAT and reel-to-reel stuff. Y'all probably don't know nothing about that. But everybody came there to record and put out good music. You supported, just artists. And it didn't matter if he was singing, rapping, poetry. He had the facility for everybody to come in here and make it happen. And it wasn't about no money at all. He just like, hey, he got the stuff. And he just built it for us. This was actually one of the non-profit studios you could come to. Was Ugly Mike's Records, and the label was called Cold Heat Records.
Man, he came up with this concept called Cold Heat Records. As a matter of fact, I drew the logo for him way back in the day. Mo B was on that label as well. I did some production for him, and so being in the back with all of those artists, man, coming through, allowing them to have space to create and produce.
He's always helped the local people with their own music. Local people will come in there with their music and put it in there, and he puts it on the shelf with everybody's even major.
And Ugly Mike's, you're an artist who's trying to get it. And your poster is right beside Johnny Taylor's. And right beside 3 6 Mafia's, right beside Scarface's. It was y'all all the same person. Go out here and get it.
Unfortunately, during the 1990s, Little Rock, Arkansas became known for gang activities and violent crimes. During this tumultuous time, Mike's presence, record store, and studio served as a rest haven for many young African Americans. What initially started as a record store created by a young aspiring comedian would eventually turn into something that would save countless lives throughout the city.
Every time I say something about rap to adults, they rolling their eyes, they talking about it's a fad, they not taking me seriously because I'm a 15-year-old kid. I go to Ugly Mike's and say these same things. And he said, well, what you got for me? You want to record your stuff? It's this much an hour. Go talk to my guys. They'll get you booked. You know what I'm saying? You get your stuff pressed up and it look nice with a nice cover. We'll sit it right here at the front of the store by the register. You know, he said, do this, this, and this, and I will treat you just like I treat the national artists who come through here and sell their stuff. And it gives you something to shoot for. I'm 15. We know how the 90s was, some of the most violent times in recorded history, recorded American history. It felt even crazier to always be going to funerals in high school. Who knows, man, where we would have been, man. I get emotional thinking about it because I hope that one day he can feel, even if he don't know with his mind, I hope that one day he can feel the gravity of what he did for so many people like me. Because just providing a space to do anything kept me out of harm's way. And I could never repay him.
I think the biggest impact I had on a person that made me feel some kind of way. A young kid that went to school with my son at J.A. Fair, they played baseball together. I guess he'd been out of school about 3 years. And he came through the store one day, him and a couple more kids. Pants were sagging, hadn't been kept. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you doing with your life? He said, well, can't find no job, I ain't doing anything. I said, well, did you ever think about going into the military? And when I said that, there's a few people in here, man, don't you go in the military and get killed. I said, let me tell you something, man. I said, more people got killed in Chicago last year than all the military put together. So you're safer in the military than you are in Chicago. And we talked for a minute, and I told him, I say, a young black man in America, chances are you're gonna do 4 years somewhere, either college, the military, or the penitentiary. I said, now you've already ruled out college, so you're down to 2 choices now, the military or the penitentiary. Man, he looked at me like he thought I was crazy and walked out. I guess it's about 3 or 4 years after that, he came in the store. He had on an Army uniform, and I talked to this kid for 3 minutes before it dawned on me who he was. He told me then, he said, Mr. Mike, he said, the advice you gave me was the best advice anybody ever gave me in my life. And that's what made me feel good. That really made me feel good. To know that he went and did something positive.
So when it comes to the people that we uplift in the community, you have to put Mike in there. Just as much as you put anybody else who's done anything for the community.
He is an example for the community. Just like, say, McIntosh, just like Annie Abrams.
Personally, I think everybody needs to know that he was a great man. And that's my personal opinion about it, is that he wasn't just a building that sold CDs. He had a heart, he had a soul. I hope that he works and lives for ever.
It's been a good life for me. You know, like I said, I come from North Little Rock. We had nothing. And I got 13 siblings. So it's 14 of us kids in my family. And it was tough. And then I get the opportunity to meet people who's, you know, celebrities, things like that. It does a little bit for your soul.
If you could give any advice to any young folks about like life or leaving legacy or just anything, what would you tell them?
I probably would tell them that everybody should leave a footprint somewhere. Whatever it is that you do, make that your signature. If you do it good, my signature. When I leave here, when somebody mentions ugly, the first thing they're gonna think about is me, because I'm ugly. And you know, I'm ugly Warren, ugly. I've been called ugly a lot of things, but they know I'm ugly Mike and I'm ugly Warren, because that's been my signature. And when I leave here, I know that'll be my signature. When people speak ugly, they'll speak of me.